Howdy everyone, welcome to Lesson 4 of MMO TCG 101. Today we're going to cover the order of play and the priority system. So let us start by defining what order of play means. The order of play refers to two ideas simultaneously. These are the phases in a turn, as well as the sequenced execution of cards from your hand. So let's look at each of these concepts briefly, the first being the sequence of a turn. So after you've experienced several games, you should be used to the idea that turns in Hex are broken into several phases. And without any quicken cards, you have limitations on what you can do during those phases. Strategically breaking the flows can give you an advantage, so pay attention to them. Generally, in a turn, you'll ready your cards, draw, have your main phase play, attack, and maybe play again before the end of your turn. This sequence is the high-level order of play. All players need to be familiar with the general flow of the turn and be acutely aware of how their deck interacts during each phase. This means if you used quicken cards, it is in your interest to know which phases are the best to play those cards. We'll go more in depth on this idea when we talk about priority. Now, the next idea in order of play is representative of one of the most crucial and difficult skills in TCGs. What we have to understand is that each card has a certain amount of utility and power in any given situation. As a player, you gotta play your cards in an order that maximizes that utility and power. So here's an example. Let's say we have 3 cards in our hand, 3 open resources, 2 of which have produced Diamond Threshold and 1 Wild Threshold. Now, for our 3 cards, we have 2 Pack Raptors and 1 Adamanthian Scrivener. We have 3 ways that we can play these cards. We can go Raptor, Raptor, Scrivener, Raptor, Scrivener, Raptor, and Scrivener, Raptor, Raptor. So we have to ask ourselves, in a general situation, what way is the best way to play them? So to be able to answer this on the fly in any given situation, that is the skill you need to be a good player, and mastering it takes you to a pro player. Now, for the example that we've given, the best combination is Scrivener, Raptor, Raptor. This position gives you 2 life from the Scrivener and allows you to have 2 pumped up Raptors. That 2 life can be the extra turn necessary to finish off the opponent. So be sure you squeeze out every bit of value you can for your cards while you take time and think about your actions. Many situations can come up that can change the order we even play our cards. So let's suppose this hypothetical. Our opponent has laid a trap in place for us. We know that the next card we play is going to be taken over by the Mono Sapphire opponent and will enter play on his side of the board. So how do we play our 3 cards in hand? Well, in this case, we should go Raptor, Scrivener, Raptor. We'll lose the first Raptor, but we'll still gain 1 additional life. We also lose the bonus that both Raptors would give to each other for being in play on the same side. But since the Raptor creates copies of itself and puts them into a player's deck, it's possible, after some testing, that this could load down our opponent's deck with 4 cards he can't even play because he's Mono Sapphire. So we did lose the 1/1 creature, but because of how we played, we minimized the advantage of our opponent, and we made the most of our cards, being able to gain life and gain board position. Now this is only the tip-top surface of the concept. Alpha is the playground that we testers get to enjoy while learning the best order of play. So before we go any deeper, we first need to examine the thing called priority. Priority is a hex term adapted from Magic the Gathering, referring to who has the right of first play during a phase and a turn. So on your turn, you begin play with priority. Any action you take is the first to enter a mechanic called the chain. The chain is very important. Very, very important. So remember that before an action resolves, it goes on to the chain, and you pass your opponent priority. This will allow them to use any quickened cards or powers that they may have to add to the chain. When both players end up passing, and this can go back a couple times depending on how much mana is open and what each player has going on, but after both players pass priority, all cards on the chain resolve in the order of last in, first out. And after all cards resolve, the phase will then continue. Now this can happen in any phase. It can happen in the attack phase, it can happen in the main phase, it can happen during the draw phase. It can get crazy up in them phases. But what we have to understand is that though this system is complex, as you experience it, you'll get the flow with how the client works in priority, and you'll become familiar to the feel, and you'll be able to accelerate your turns, and it won't always bog down. So, if you build a deck that uses a lot of quicken cards, you have to take a lot of care before you pass priority. Most quicken abilities are best used on an opponent's turn, and they have to pass you priority before you can use them. So don't get click happy and don't be impatient waiting to play your cards. Wrong clicks or button mashing when you're waiting for someone to send you priority can change whether or not you even get to play the opportunity because you clicked through it. Just don't do it, guys. Be patient. Don't click needlessly. Don't hit buttons needlessly. Now, you may have noticed that the high-level order of play is facilitated by the priority system. It allows players that have highly interactive decks to be able to play across any of the phases, but the client pushes you through the game forward so you don't waste time. But mastering that order of play and knowing how to use the priority system are crucial for you to be able to move your skill forward. So knowing that little bit can be that early separator of skill, and attaining mastery can push you into the pro player level. So if you feel like you need a little work on order of play, check out the perhexing puzzles put out by the Threshold podcast for some good practice. Now in our next lesson, we're going to cover basic strategies for winning games and touch on the concept of card efficiency. If you want to stay up to date on these lessons as they're released, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to help your friends get prepared for Hex, don't forget to hit the like button and share the video. Till our next lesson, I'm Mokog, and this is Hex Hunter.